With Japan and New Zealand having major earthquakes just 9 days apart, both on the Ring of Fire, both on the Pacific Plate, it's tempting to ask, are they connected? To discuss that and what's happening beneath New Zealand, we went to Greg Beroza, a geophysics professor at Stanford University in California and co-director of the Southern California Earthquake Centre, a man who has a specialist interest in New Zealand's tectonic activity. So are the earthquakes in Japan and New Zealand linked?
It's a natural question to ask, and seismologists ask the same question. The answer in this case is almost certainly not, at least not in the sense that we usually mean related. That is, it's not that the earthquake in New Zealand triggered the earthquake in Japan. However, as you mentioned, they're both on the Pacific Plate. It's a very large plate. It's actually the largest plate. And both of them have a common origin in the sense that those plates are steadily moving, they're locked at their boundaries, and when the boundaries become unlocked, that's when earthquakes happen. So they're related, but it's not that one caused the other.
One of the unusual things about the earthquake that we saw in New Zealand 8 days ago, which was 7.8, was that the coastline has risen along the east coast of the South Island up to 4 metres in some places, and our expectation was that in an event like that, the Pacific would drive the Australian down. Is that unusual to see that kind of coastal uplift in a region like New Zealand?
Not really. I mean, it is. I've seen some of the photographs, and it's a spectacular effect. It's very clear. So what happens is the plate boundary between the Pacific Plate, which is, as you say, going under, and the New Zealand, which is riding on top. What happens is that plate boundary is locked in between earthquakes. It's stuck. And so as the Pacific Plate continues to move, it sort of bends the plate that the New Zealand is on, downward. That's in between earthquakes. And then when the friction is overcome and the plate boundary suddenly slides, New Zealand, the coast especially, pops back up. And that's what was seen in that earthquake. So in between the earthquake, over hundreds and hundreds of years, that coast was slowly subsiding imperceptibly. And then in the earthquake, all that gets reversed in a matter of seconds, and it pops back up.
Of course, we who are alive to see this and are living near to it, and some of our listeners are living directly above it, think it is particular and unique, and we take stock and think, gosh, this is an unusual event. What you are gently, and I think actually reassuringly telling us is this is just tectonic business as usual. Yeah,
that's actually a very nice way to put it. It is. I mean, and if you're there when it happens, it's it's got to be terrifying, but it's not. In terms of geologic time in the Earth, this is what the Earth does.
And it's not doing it anymore at the moment. It's just that it happens to be doing it here. It seems to me that every time I interview a geophysicist, anyone who knows anything about earthquakes, I'm always asking them for some form of reassurance. Is that part of the job? Do people want you to tell them it's going to be okay?
Yeah, well, it is going to be okay. For the most part, it's going to be okay. I mean, I don't know what the statistics are in New Zealand, but in the U.S., you're far, far more likely to die from any number of causes, traffic accidents, for example, than in an earthquake. So our perception of risk is a little bit influenced by what we're familiar with. So people see car crashes all the time. Maybe they're not in them, but they see them, and they're not. You have some measure of control over whether you're in a car and how you drive and all that sort of stuff. With an earthquake, it's with suddenly what once was solid ground is suddenly moving in a very unfamiliar way, and so the suddenness and unexpectedness of the onset is, I think, deeply unsettling, and contributes to the fear we feel. But if you think about a place like New Zealand, the reason you have such spectacular scenery is basically earthquakes. That's what's causing the mountains to build and the landscape to evolve.
Greg Beroza, who is a geophysicist at Stanford University in California.